Hello and welcome to Pathways, where you are invited to join me for a visit with leaders in personal development and cultural evolution. This is your host, Paul O'Brien. Meditation is all the rage these days. The practice is simple, but may not be easy. But what if meditation didn't require discipline, intense concentration, or hours of sitting still, but was actually something you looked forward to? True peace of mind is closer than you might think. And that's a play on words. Today, we'll be discussing the paradox of meditation, that the harder we try to meditate, the more we get in our own way. Our guest is Peter Russell, author of the new book, How to Meditate Without Even Trying. Peter has written 11 other books, including Letting Go of Nothing and From Science to God. A teacher of meditation for more than 50 years, he believes that the critical challenge of today is freeing human thinking from the limited beliefs and attitudes that lie behind many of our problems, personal, social, and global. He has inspired thousands through his talks, teachings, retreats, and popular online courses. And we are so happy to be having Peter back on Pathways. I think it's the third time. And well, hello, Peter, and welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back with you again, Paul. I know I've enjoyed my conversations with you in the past, so I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. Well, let's start out by asking, how is your newest book an evolution of your other writings on meditation?
Um, I, I started off with TM. That was my first book 50 years ago.
Right.
Um, and I've always been interested in meditation. Um, this is only the second time I've actually done a book on meditation itself.
Hmm.
And this is sort of like the end of my writing. But meditation has always been there, either sort of mentions in the book. I think all my books, in one way or another, have been the sub theme has been about the expansion of consciousness, the growth of consciousness, awakening, however we want to call it. That's been there as a sub theme.
Right.
And this book, I just realized I've been teaching a lot. I've made videos, got an online course on meditation. I run groups, but I've never pulled all the ideas together into one place. And so I decided it was time to do this and actually integrate it all into one book, everything I've discovered from my own practice and with other people, teaching other people. That actually makes meditation easy.
Well, I think that's an interesting angle, and it's not one that I've ever seen. And I read books on meditation all the time. I used to be a Vipassana teacher myself, and it's a topic that's very important to me. And we've had a lot of shows, but wow, what an interesting spin this book gives it. But let me ask first, is this a book just for beginners, or can it also be helpful, in your opinion, for experienced meditators?
Oh, definitely for experienced meditators as well. I mean, it's both. I mean, for beginners, I start off with a very basic practice. And then a lot of the book is about how to deal with things that come up, noise, emotion, that sort of thing, and how to actually go deeper into the meditation.
Hmm.
And what I found is, because I teach meditation quite a bit, um, a lot of people who come to my groups are experienced meditators. And my online course, I get a lot of experienced meditators there. And time and again, they say, wow, I never realized it could be this easy. At last I feel I can meditate. I can do it, or even not doing it, but I can actually let go into the meditation. So it's definitely for people who've been meditating some time who want to go deeper, want to try something else,
Right.
like the idea of actually being effortless and enjoyable.
Well, I want to get into that. I want to drill into this easy and effortless idea. But first, let's talk about um, what does it mean to be present? This is a theme throughout the book. And in the foreword to the book, Eckhart Tolle, who wrote the foreword, um, he writes, the biggest um, obstacle to true meditation is the largely unconscious assumption that meditation is something that we do.
Yes.
So what does it mean to be present if it's not to do stuff?
Um, to be present is simply for me to notice my experience in the present moment. To notice, right now I can see the tree outside blowing in the wind. I can feel my body. I can see you, hear your voice. Being present is being present to the experience. But what happens is we get caught up in thoughts, and nearly all our thoughts take us out into the past or the future or into some imaginary situation. And when that happens, we can be more aware of our thoughts than we are of the present moment.
Right.
And and so I see meditation as a way of allowing the thinking mind to quieten down, and so that we can be more open to the present. I think that that's the important bit. And it's not about doing anything. I mean, in a sense, we already are here now. It's just our attention is somewhere else. So we don't have to do anything to be present. It's there waiting for us. What we have to, quote, do is not follow the thoughts that are taking us away from the present moment. And
Well,
so
the thoughts are a phenomenon in the present moment. I
exactly, yes, this is the paradox in a way.
Right, right. So I think there's a really important distinction to be made between thoughts arising and the activity of thinking.
Yes. Well, thinking, it's often when we're actually focused on something, we're actually deliberately thinking about something, we're entertaining an idea, maybe it's a problem we want to solve, maybe we're planning something or an idea we've read about. We're actively thinking.
Yeah,
And what I'm talking about more is just the thoughts that come in meditation. In meditation, we're not actively thinking. I mean, we're taking time off from solving problems and all that stuff. So we're
right.
just coming back, being here. But what everybody notices is as soon as you stop focusing, what they call the monkey mind comes in, and thoughts go here, there, everywhere. And
Right.
that's actually completely normal and natural. It's the brain going into what's called the default mode, whereby it's looking at itself, it's looking at the world, looking at oneself, the world, it's creative, it's planning. And
Do you
so it's
think
quite gone.
well, I was just gonna say, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just gonna say, do you think that this tendency that we have to identify with thoughts that arise is an ego function? In other words, what makes them my thoughts? When I try to
Yeah.
meditate, I don't really want to think, and thoughts arise anyway. And then I think the instinct or kind of a normal thing that people do is they identify with their thoughts.
Yes.
This is my thought. Well, what
Yes.
makes it yours? You didn't even invite it. How could it be
Right.
yours? You didn't even want it. But
Right.
is that the ego that's doing that?
Yes. And also because the ego thinks this thought is important or it's interesting, I need to think it. And so we
Right.
get, as you say, identified with the thought. In the practice that I encourage, it's like seeing a thought, it's just an activity of the mind, it's just appearing. I mean, as many teachers have said, it's like a cloud passing through the sky. And so rather than identify with it, we just choose not to be interested in that thought anymore, not to follow it. And then as we withdraw our attention from it, you notice, oh, here's my body again, here's that sound. So we don't have to do anything to become present. So this comes back to the not doing.
Right. And maybe if we get used to letting the thoughts just pass us by rather than latching onto them, do they s- do they start arising less frequently?
I think in what people find in meditation, they arise less frequently, but when they do arise, they're not so strong. They're not so intense. They don't take us over so much. And we can begin to say, oh, there I go, thinking about the shopping list. Okay, don't need to do that now. So we can step back from the thoughts so they don't grab us so much. And
Right.
that's when we do that, then that's the mind gradually beginning to settle down of its own accord. We don't have to do anything to settle the mind. It's just it will, as you come back to the present, gradually quieten down of its own accord.
It's so hard to take a time out and say, I don't care what thoughts come up. I'm not going to pay attention to any of them. Maybe, but then another part of my mind says, wait, maybe some important thought or some creative thought is going to occur to you. Do you recommend that people just take a break and write that down and then go back to meditating?
Not really, no. I mean, and even that's a thought. Even the thought, oh, this is an important thought, that's another thought. And just
Right.
to recognize that's a thought. In fact, the most insidious thoughts are the thoughts about the meditation itself. How am I doing? How long's it been? How's it going? And, oh, that's an important thought. Just seeing them all as just thoughts, are just choosing not to follow them for now.
Right.
If it's important, you'll remember it later. If it's that important.
I think part of the reason we do that is because of what you talk about in part one of your book, which is entitled The Myth of Effort. And you're saying meditation should be easy and effortless, but most people kind of treat medicine like working out in the gym. It's just, oh, this is something I'm supposed to do. This is good for me. I've got to discipline myself and make myself do this. Um, so how is that counterproductive? And that's really what your book is all about. But
Right. And I think part of that is in our culture, it's like if you're not succeeding, try harder. And that's
right,
true with many things, learning a language, sport, or anything. But with meditation, the opposite is true. The less you try, the easier it is. Because if we're I'm looking at meditation techniques which are actually fostering a quieter state of mind. I mean, there are techniques where concentration and effort is important. I'm not talking about those so much. I'm just talking about the everyday practice for people of coming to a quieter state of mind.
okay. So you you recommend a different type of practice for people who are doing it or casual meditators, so to speak, um, as opposed to monks or people that go
Yeah.
on these. Yeah,
And I think there's this idea that it's hard, and part of that comes because a lot of the practices that are taught today in the world are actually monastic practices. They're
exactly.
practices for monks, who are there doing long retreats or whatever.
Hmm.
And they're fine if you've got the time to do long retreats to really get involved in it. But I'm not interested in those monastic practices so much. I'm just interested in an everyday, regular practice for people that will allow them to just step back from what they're doing, come to a
Hmm.
quieter state.
Hmm.
And it feels good. This is what's nice about it. It actually feels good. It's like coming home to oneself. You're no longer caught out there with all the worry, etc. So
Yeah,
it's like, yes,
I've come to question the value of 10-day meditation retreats. I've done them, but especially when I was younger, and I've traveled around the world with a Buddhist nun, helping her put on 10-day Vipassana retreats throughout all these different countries. So I have a lot of exposure and experience, but to me, I thought, well, how much good does that really do me? I mean, it's a purifying thing for sure to fast. It's like mental fasting for 10 days, but it did seem a little extreme. And I've been to Dharamsala where people do retreats for 90 days or 6 months, you know, and I'm thinking, well, do I want to be a monk? No, that's not my path. But is it really healthy for people to do stuff like that?
it may be for the individual.
Uh-huh.
Who knows? I mean, I've done a number of 10-day retreats myself, Vipassana
Hmm.
type retreats, and they have been valuable. I usually find after a couple of days, the first day or two, I'm just sleeping, which shows how fatigued I
Right.
am. That background fatigue comes out.
Hmm.
But also, I've learnt in terms of when I'm sitting quietly, um, it's almost like the meditation is teaching me how to let go more and be quieter. So
Right.
I've actually learnt about meditation. It's like the meditation has taught me on retreats.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, go on.
I had that, I had that same experience. It's like, I'm so grateful that I did a couple 10-day silent retreats because it wasn't until like the fourth day that I had a breakthrough where I actually experienced this blissful side effect. And I remember that my teacher said, Americans, they kind of need that blissful side effect, in order to be motivated.
Yeah,
But it made a big difference for me because once I had that, they call that PT in Pali, that experience of bliss when you're not preoccupied by thoughts and when you're, totally at one in the present moment. Once you have that experience, it's sort of like taking LSD. It's sort of like you can go back to that. You can access that much more easily in the future. So I'm very grateful for that. And I tell people, I recommend that they do a long enough retreat to have that experience because, oh, it took 3 or 4 days for me. I mean, I'm sitting there, my inner critic's going crazy. Why can I not avoid daydreaming? We were sitting for 7, 8 hours a day.
yeah,
Uh, anyway, um, so it was a good experience for me, but I don't keep doing it. And I know people
right,
who do make it a regular, they consider it very central to their spiritual
right.
development.
I haven't done one for probably 20 years now. I did quite a
Yeah,
few back then, learnt a lot. But
right.
I don't feel a need to do that at all. It's shown me something, and I've learnt how that deep silence feels. which I
Right.
love. And now in my own practice, I just find I can tune into that deep silence much more easily. In fact, almost any meditation, as I quieten down, I can tune in just, here I am, here's that stillness. I
You know,
don't need the retreats for that anymore.
right. So people that are beginning meditators, I used to teach meditation and I would tell them, they'd say things to me like, "Oh, I can't do this. I can't stop thinking." I say, "Well, you can stop thinking about things. Thoughts will arise, but that's not a problem unless you make it a problem." But they'd say, "Oh, I have an addictive personality," and I go, "Of course you have an addictive personality. That's the reason you were reincarnated." But the addiction to being a separate, special self, that's the last one to go. But so I would tell them, I'd say, okay, just make a commitment to sit. Don't have achievement goals related to the quality of your meditation, at least not in the beginning.
Right.
Just make a commitment to sit for 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you do that and you find a good posture and you just make a commitment, I'm going to sit here till the alarm goes off 15 minutes from now. You're going to want to meditate because there's nothing else to do. I mean, there's nothing better that you could do.
Right.
Do you think that's good advice? What do you tell people who are just starting out? TM said 20 minutes twice a day. I mean, what do you say?
I say whatever time suits you. I'd say a minimum of 15 minutes, unless you're very short of time one day,
Right,
because
right.
you need time to settle in. But I would
Yeah.
say 30 minutes max, because
Yeah.
you're then going to
Uh-huh.
just be you're going to be like on your personal retreat, and you're going to get
Mhm.
spaced out. I see
Right.
meditation as something just to integrate into your life, so that you can bring that quietness into your life. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yes, and if you haven't got time, even just to sit for a few minutes, but not to just sit and do nothing. It's sitting quietly with yourself, but there is an intention. It's not just sitting there waiting for the alarm to go off.
Mhm.
There's an intention for me, and the intention is really what we were touching on before. The intention is whenever I notice I've wandered off on something, just to come back to being here now and just like
Right.
moving the interest away from the thought, moving the interest to the present. And that doesn't mean to say we have to hold the interest to the present moment. It'll wander around. That's fine. It's not like we've got to concentrate on the breath or something. It's just
Yeah.
come back. Here's the present moment. Oh, I hadn't noticed that before. In fact, I sometimes say to people, if they find three things about the present moment you hadn't noticed before. And that gets you like more sort of into experiencing the present.
You are very forgiving of your students. I love that approach. This whole thing about the practice of allowing, you call it in the book.
Yeah.
And you describe this technique that you call gentle returning. And that's just such a beautiful way to put it, rather than, getting pissed off because I, I keep thinking about something, just notice and return,
Yeah.
bring back, it's like training a dog not to poop in the house. It's
Yeah.
you don't want to beat them up. So
You too. Yeah.
yeah. And so then you talk about, part 3 of your book is about releasing tension. And you make the point, which I love all these paradoxical points that you make. By stopping the effort to become relaxed, you actually reach a state of relaxation. That's
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, and tension can come in. And what I suggest is whether it's tension or whether it's a strong emotional thought or anything, what we tend to do is push it away. We don't want to experience it. We think it's interfering with the meditation, but it
Hmm.
isn't. It's just that is what is happening in the present moment. As well as the birds singing, there's also sadness coming up, or tension in the body, or tightness in the mind. So
Hmm.
let your attention go there and be curious. What's this sadness feel like? But how's it feel in the body? Not as a thought. We're not going back to thoughts. Oh, I'm sad because my cat died or something. We're not going back to thoughts. We come back to the
Yeah.
body. How does sadness feel in the body? Or this
Yes.
tension, how does it feel? And when you do that, when you come back to the body and just be curious, just notice what it's like, time and again, you'll find it begins to soften and dissolve. So I
It,
encourage giving the attention to anything that seems to be disturbing the present moment, but just accepting, no, this is part of it.
It's a challenge to tap into that part of my mind that can experience curiosity when I'm dealing, when I'm dealing with content that I normally wholeheartedly resist.
Yeah,
Like the news or any number of things. Uncomfortable feelings
yeah,
are hard to be curious about because I don't want them. I have
right,
resistance. It's like I want to feel good, and
yeah.
I want meditation to make me feel good. When actually, there is a really an upside to learning how to sit with uncomfortable feelings.
Right. And in fact, the first thing I suggest to people is notice the resistance. Because if we're resisting something, we can't even notice the uncomfortable feeling properly. And so I
Right.
suggest if you are resisting, and sometimes we don't know we can just say, am I resisting something here? If you feel you're resisting, notice how resistance feels in the body. Say, oh, when I'm resisting, oh, there's a tightness here, I'm doing this. This is how resistance feels. And as you do that, you'll find the resistance begins to soften and often just disappear. And then you can be with the emotion as it is without the added tension of the resistance.
Right. It's interesting to be a human being. We are curious by nature, but we're also nervous. And those two, finding a way to balance those two tendencies is that's the zen of of
Yeah.
of of developing consciousness.
Yeah.
And you talk about the natural mind in part 4 of your book. And what do you mean by that phrase, the natural mind?
I mean, the mind, when we're not worried about something, when we're not planning, when we're not absorbed in doing the thinking, it's like when there's no needs, our needs are met, there's no threats, and we can relax. And
Right.
it's the mind when it's in a relaxed state, when it's not worrying. And when the mind is in a relaxed state, it feels good. There's a quality of ease, there's a quality of contentment, and that's where we're heading to in meditation, because as we take away the things that, you know, perturb us in one way or another, or the thoughts, we drop back into this state. I just call it natural mind. It's the mind that is easy when there's no problems. So
Yeah.
it's the contented mind is natural mind, because there's
Oh,
nothing disturbing our innate contentment.
well, I'm glad that you're teaching about contentment because it's not a really popular concept in the American consciousness. We're just we just want more, more, more. We're in a hurry.
Right.
We can't get enough. We worry about not having enough. And then, so why don't you have a practice? And so you're talking about returning to ease,
Yes.
in this state of beingness. It reminds me of the concept of self in the IFS therapy. um, the self being your true nature that's naturally curious and naturally compassionate and naturally contented. um, and that's what I think the practice of if I can get there in my meditation practice to where I'm being self-led, that feels that seems like a really good good approach. But
Yeah.
you have this thing called mini and micro meditations, which gets to your efforts to help people integrate meditative wisdom into their life. Can you
Yeah.
describe mini and micro meditations?
Yes. Firstly, a mini meditation is just a short couple of minutes to do when you've got nothing else to do. You could be stuck in traffic, on hold on the phone, or waiting for the coffee to make itself, whatever. You can just take a couple of minutes and just relax, just take a breath or two. So I always encourage people to relax, breathe deeply before they start, and then just notice, here I am, here's the sound of the kettle boiling or whatever it is, and just have a short couple of minutes while you've got nothing to do, just coming back and noticing the present moment again. So that's what I call a mini meditation.
Hmm.
Micro meditations are much shorter. They're just 10 seconds. And that is simply between two tasks, pausing. It's just pausing and noticing. Again, pause. What I do is I pause, take a deep breath out, and then just, okay, where was my mind? What was happening? Where's my body? And just stepping back from experience just for 10 seconds is really, really valuable. And you can do that, 50 times a day. I, you know,
Well,
getting in and out of the car get into the car before you start the engine. Here I am.
do you think that
Or
people should, develop an anchor or a home base? Like in TM, it's a mantra. I know
right,
sometimes when I've got, some time to kill, I'll just do this ancient Sanskrit mantra with my breath, and in Vipassana, it's the breath is the object. We haven't talked about concentration today and the role that it plays in meditative practice, but do you think that having an anchor like that is generally a good idea?
not for the practice I'm teaching, no. I
Okay.
mean, I think in many practices do have an anchor, but when you have an anchor, you're again, slight degree of concentration, focusing the mind can come in. And what I'm encouraging is not so much a focusing mind, but zooming out. Like with a camera, you can zoom in or you can zoom out. So I don't use anchors in what I'm teaching. It's more just zooming
Hmm.
out and just relaxing into the moment here. So we're not trying to stay present to anything. The mind will become present, you'll come back into thought or something. So we're not trying to stay anywhere in this practice.
Okay. So there's a skill which is letting go of thoughts. Um, I created a mantra for myself once, which was letting with the in breath and go with the out breath. It just kind of reminded me of what I wanted to do. But we've pretty much run out of time, and I just want to repeat the book's central message, which is so needed, I think, and so beautiful, and that is that meditation is not something you do, but something you stop doing. It's the cessation of the mental trying that
Yes.
allows our natural inner calm to surface. And that's a quote from your book. And I want to thank you, Peter. I mean, there's so much more we could explore, but we've run out of time for today's show.
Okay, but lovely to be with you again.
And I
Yes.
want to I want to be sure to tell our listeners about your website, which is peterrussell.com. All one word, peterrussell.com. And you can find out about Peter's books, Peter's work. And I encourage you to go there. And I encourage you to get this book because I think this is a book everybody should have. How to Meditate Without Even Trying. I just love the title and everything about it. And thank you for thank you for doing what you do, man. You're awesome. I'm just grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And for those who may be listening to Pathways Live on a Sunday morning on KBOO and have tuned in late, this is your host, Paul O'Brien, producer of the visionary I Ching Oracle, an app that supports great decisions and perfect timing. We're so glad you are with us today. Please note that you have the ability to review hundreds of interviews in our online archive at divination.com. And you can play or share this particular program whenever you want via the internet or as a free podcast, and I'll tell you how in a minute. Today, we've been visiting with Peter Russell, author of How to Meditate Without Even Trying. And I want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of you listeners for tuning into Pathways, which is currently broadcast on KBOO FM in Portland, Oregon. And you can get a free subscription to our podcast, which you can also find at divination.com. That's DIVI nation.com, or by searching for Pathways Radio on Paulo's YouTube channel, where you can give us a thumbs up and subscribe. In any case, please feel free to forward a link to your friends. And this is Paulo bidding you adieu and reminding you to tell your friends about Pathways podcasts. And thanks again to Peter Russell and to all of you listeners for tuning in and being a part of the Pathways conversation.